You guys may not realize this, but today I turned 44 and 354 days old. Some people had actual birthdays here recently. But this is the thing I was thinking about as I realize I'm getting a little older. Sorry, it kind of hurts coming out. I have an advantage over you in that it's real easy to see backwards into time and see circumstances and situations that I can easily see now why they happen. But in the moment that they happen, you're just looking up like, why in the world is this going on? Has anyone else ever felt like, why is this going on? Where are the situations happening? I can't see the big picture. I have no idea. And you just feel so clueless and a little bit lost in the moment. I have the advantage. I'm telling you that, and you'll only be able to experience that when you have that advantage too. I was thinking about where I was at 20, you know. I remember it was right around 2021 where I just completely fell in love with Jesus, and I felt a call to ministry. I thought, man, I would do whatever God wants me to do. I want to teach people the Bible for the rest of my life. I just want to serve God. And I felt like God had put that on me, you know. So I thought, okay, well, I was working this job, this retail job in a sporting goods store, and I thought, well, maybe I'm supposed to go to Bible college. So I started visiting all these colleges. Some colleges took one look at me and said, no, I don't think so. So that's probably happened. Probably hasn't happened to you guys. But I had some colleges turn me down. Some colleges said, yes, we would love to have you, but they were really expensive. And I had already, through some circumstances, situations, and decisions, I already had an accumulation of debt. And I also made money because I had a job, so I wasn't qualifying for a lot of help back then. And I thought, God, if you're calling me to ministry, I don't understand. Why is this happening? And the conclusion I came to was that God was calling me to be in ministry wherever I was at. So I thought, okay, well, maybe that's what you called me to. I will just serve wherever I'm at. So I just thought, I'm going to work hard and connect to the people around me and try to share the gospel. And so that's what I did. But I worked this job, and I thought, this is so meaningless. I'm working for, this company that, means nothing to me other than I just want to do a good job for them and get paid. But it was retail management. And I had to deal with people all the time who had problems. I had to deal with angry people. I had to deal with people who I had to, teach them things all the time. My managers, they had they basically said, look, you have to train everyone in the store to do what you do. I'm like, okay. And then, once I became an assistant manager because I worked really hard and I wanted to, work my way up. So I got this job and I thought, man, this is not bad. I'm getting paid a little bit more and I have some responsibility. Well, the company brought all the assistant managers from the entire country into a meeting. And I thought, okay, this is where we learn how to be good assistant managers and how we learn the business. They go to the meeting and they brought in a professional public speaker who said, our job this week is to train on public speaking. And I sat there in the meeting and I thought, why in the world would I be in this meeting? I'm an assistant manager of a retail store. We sell sporting goods. We sell basketballs and tennis shoes. Why are we taking public speaking courses here? So I trained. I did everything I was supposed to do. At the end of the week, you had to give a speech in front of everyone else, your peers, and they had to give you feedback. I'm like, fine. After it was over, I thought, thank goodness that's over. I don't have to deal with that again. And then, I worked my way up. I became the store manager. The store manager, you know what the store manager's job is to do? Cast vision for the store. And you have to okay, here's the initiatives from the company. You have to take the initiatives from someone else, figure out how to cast a vision for the store and move them in a direction. Then I thought, okay, I got to get out of this. This job's not helping me get anywhere close to where God wants me to be. So I took this job with this sales company, and I had to learn how to connect to people, how to understand them. And I had this master guru who just understood people, and every day he would train me. This is what's going on behind the scenes with people, and he would train me. This is how you understand and connect to them. Eventually, the company grew, and there were people in many states, and they would all come together every quarter, and he wanted someone to train them on how to do this. So I became the lead communicator trainer of the company. You ever had a Miyagi moment? I realize now it's so easy to see that I didn't have a traditional path to ministry. But everything that God had trained me in are things that I do every day in ministry. Disciple, which is teaching and training. I communicate, cast vision, have to leadership. I have to deal with people all the time. And my job is to take initiatives from someone who's my boss and help cast vision to help lead people to follow God. Isn't that weird? And it's so easy now to look back and say, wow, wax on, wax off. God, I get it now. You're like this great Miyagi in the sky. I get it. But in those moments, I'm like, why? Why are you doing these things? You hear this statement. I'll bet you guys have said this, or at least have heard this. Everything happens for a reason. Why? And you're like, okay, all right, I trust that you are doing this for a reason. I just don't get it. It's hard. How do you trust God in the midst of circumstances that don't look like they're going your direction? It's tough. And more than that, I would think everyone in the room probably has felt this. We want to know that God is guiding us. We want to know that God's behind that reason. And even if you feel like you're like really close to God right now, you want to know that God is guiding your life. And if you feel like you're far from God, you still want to know that God is guiding your life and kind of directing the things behind the scenes. Everyone wants to know that. The question is, how exactly does God guide our lives? So what I want to do is I want to dig into a passage of Scripture in Genesis chapter 25 that when you first read it, it's kind of weird. And it doesn't seem to, like, why is this happening? But it's found in Genesis, and we're in the series, the beginning in Genesis. And we've talked about Adam and Eve, and we've talked about Cain and Abel, we've talked about Noah, and then last week Andrew talked about Abraham and his son Isaac, and now we're on to Isaac's sons, Jacob and Esau. So if you have a Bible, open it up, and you can open up to 25th chapter of Genesis. You can open up your little bulletin, so I'm going to kind of walk you through and I'll help you kind of track with me as we're going. But my hope is that at the end of this, we'll start to understand a little bit better how God is guiding our lives, and that will hopefully give us some confidence in Him and trust in Him. So let me pray, and then we're going to dig in, okay? Lord, I'm so grateful for a chance to connect to you, to sing songs to you, to hang out with people who love you, and to try to dig through your word. And I pray, God, that today you would teach us more about how it is that you're trying to guide our lives. Lord, give us more confidence and more assurance and more faith today to follow you regardless of whatever is going on in our lives. And I pray that this passage would teach us much, God. In your name we pray. Amen. The first line in your bulletin I want you to kind of fill in is that God knows the future. All right, that might seem really, kind of elementary to you, but let me kind of dig into this passage. I think you'll see why it's relevant, okay? In Genesis chapter 25, what's happened is, remember Abraham and Isaac from last week? If you weren't here last week, there's a huge test of faith, and God literally foreshadowed the gospel through what happened with Abraham and his son Isaac. And I think when Andrew was talking, the one thing that struck me was that Isaac was of age. He understood clearly what was happening. And so I can just imagine the stories that Isaac must have told his children. But here's where it starts. Where his children came to be. And it's found in Genesis 25, verse 19. It says this. This is the account of Abraham's son Isaac. Abraham became the father of Isaac, and Isaac was 40 years old when he married Rebekah, daughter of Bethuel, the Aramean from Padan Aram, and the sister of Laban, the Aramean. Isaac prayed to the Lord on behalf of his wife, because she was barren. The Lord answered his prayer, and the wife Rebekah became pregnant. The babies jostled each other within her, and she said, "Why is this happening to me?" And so she went to inquire of the Lord, and the Lord said to her, 2 nations are in your womb, and the 2 peoples from within you will be separate. One people will become stronger than the other, and the older will serve the younger. Now when the time came for her to give birth, there were twin boys in her womb. The first to come out was red, and his whole body was like a hairy garment, so they named him Esau. Now after this, his brother came out with his hand grasping Esau's heel, so that he named him Jacob. Now Isaac was 60 years old when Rebekah gave birth to them. Now, it's an interesting account of what's happening, that he's 40 when he gets married, but there's 20 years before she actually gives birth. That's a long time. I can't imagine you guys are thinking, I want to get married, wait 20 years, and then have children. That's just an enormous amount of time, of marriage, and really up there in years. It doesn't say how old Rebekah was, but wow. But he prays, and God grants them the pregnancy, and the babies are in there, and the babies are jostling in there. I'm not sure what that's like. I have seen things happen in the belly, I've seen it, and it's weird. I can't imagine 2 beings in there jostling around. But Rebekah knew where to turn. She turned to God and said, "God, why is this happening?" She trusted God. That's an important part, that she knew to go to God no matter what was going on, even though she didn't understand it. And then God tells them, look, there are 2 nations in the womb, and they're wrestling around in there. And this is a big picture of the future of what's going to happen. There are going to be two nations. The older nation, the older one will raise a nation that's going to actually serve the younger nation. He's predicting the future. And we know as you move forward in the book of Genesis and on into through the Old Testament, that Esau, the older, becomes the father of the Edomites. In Genesis 31, it says Esau, who is Edom. And that nation rose up and had prominence and power at one point. We know that Jacob, as you read on in the passages, and we're not going to read this today, but he actually becomes the name Israel. And he becomes one of the patriarchs of the entire nation. And we know that the nation of Israel rose up into prominence, had the land. And Edom and Israel had wars at certain points. And Edom always ended up serving Israel. The older served the younger. He was clearly communicating the future. And this is the thing. The future is as clear to God as the present is to you and I. He doesn't have to think about it. He doesn't have to guess about it. It's as absolutely clear to him in the future as the present is right now. That's important because, people want to know where to go. We want guidance. What is my future? What's going to happen to me? Where am I going? What decisions do I make? A few years ago, I was invited to go down to New Orleans, home of the great Jimmy Angel. And I got to go down there for a conference, and there were lots of missionaries and pastors that all came to the conference. And I was with a bunch of pastors because we were discussing things, of pastor-type things. And we, on one of our off nights, got to go into the city of New Orleans. And I had seen New Orleans on TV. I had seen the pictures of Mardi Gras. I had seen the bowl games in the city and all that. So I was kind of interested to go down to the city and check it out. And so all these pastors went down to the city, and we were, one of the guys actually knew New Orleans pretty well, and so he was guiding us as we were going through the city. And so we were there on Bourbon Street. One thing I'll say about the city is that it's you can go, there's all these kind of bars up and down the street, and there's live music on every corner of a different type of band. If you want to hear whatever you want to hear, it's there. Like, there's lots of music there. It's lots of energy and lots of people. And we're going down the street, and there's this, a little gang of pastors walking down Bourbon Street. And I look over, and this guy comes right up to me. And he looks at me and goes, "Hey, man, we got a party up there." I said, I don't. He goes, "We have everything up there." I said, "I think you really have the wrong guy." So he kind of walked on. A couple minutes later, I look over, and in this bar, there's a lady dancing in front of the bar, like to draw people in. And you might think, well, that's kind of normal. Except she was wearing like pantyhose. That's it. Like, it was, I'm like, oh my gosh, New Orleans. Woo! And then we're getting ready to go up this one part of the street, and the guy who's leading us goes, "Oh, we can't go up that way." And we're like, "Well, why can't we go up that way?" "That's the red light district." I said, "What district are we in now? This is crazy." Like, New Orleans is not like Columbus at all. But this is what struck me about the city. This is what struck me. Everywhere you go in New Orleans, there are these hot dog carts. So think you're in New York City, and like you want to get a hot dog from a vendor, like you go up and he's got the cart. It's a beautiful little tin cart, and he's pushing it, and he pulls up and he's got his, getting hot dogs out. These aren't hot dog carts though. They're tarot reading carts. Hundreds of them all over the city. Now, my thought is, who would think, I want to figure out my future, and find some woman pushing a hot dog cart with a bunch of cards on it and say, "Tell me my life's future." But it must work because there's lots of cards. People are probably slinging out lots of bucks, And you might think, well, that's just New Orleans. It's probably like some kind of thing that people do in New Orleans. Come on, man. There's psychic people everywhere. You ever drive by and on that house, it's a psychic here, and I didn't know you people are in business. It's crazy. It's because people want to know the future. They want to feel secure. They want to know they're heading in the right direction. But why would you trust someone who absolutely does not know the future, doesn't understand what's happening? I think what Rebecca did there, she was trusting in God regardless, and that's the lesson I think for us. God knows the future, so we should put our trust in Him for all things. Secondly, is that God has a purpose. He has a real purpose. This verse 23 to me, it's an interesting verse because it's quoted later. We're going to go there. In verse 23, it says, "The Lord said to her, 2 nations are in your womb, and 2 peoples from within you will be separated. One people will be stronger than the other, and the older will serve the younger." Now, where this is quoted, and it's obviously a prophecy about 2 nations, not about the boys. If you read their stories, what happened was they really did, and I'll get to this in a second, but there was some, birthright stuff going on. But Esau never really served Jacob. In fact, Jacob was afraid of Esau. Spent most of his time trying to figure out how to not get killed by Esau, because there was a lot of rivalry there. This prophecy is not about these two boys. It's about two nations in the future. If you go to Romans chapter 9, there's a passage here in Romans 9, verses 10 through 13. In the letter of Romans, what's happening is the writer Paul is writing to the church at Rome. Now, the church at that time had been, a grouping of Jewish converts to Christianity and Gentile converts to Christianity. So it made up these two different people groups. The problem was that Israel was always the line of the Messiah. It was through Israel that God showed himself to the world. Through the law came through Israel. The patriarchs came through Israel. The prophets came through Israel. The Messiah came through Israel. And in a lot of ways, it was an extension of Judaism. But at this point in time, when Romans was written, all these Gentiles seemed to be flocking to this truth of Christianity and of who Jesus is and of the gospel. And the Jews were like, well, what's going on? Are we getting bypassed? So they were asking Paul the question, what's happening to our people? Are we getting bypassed? And Paul was writing in Romans 9, look, that God is doing something new. And here's what he says in verse 10 in Romans 9. It says, not only that, but Rebekah's children had one and the same father, our father Isaac. Yet before the twins were born or had done anything good or bad, in order that God's purpose in election might stand, not by works, but by him who calls, she was told, the older will serve the younger. Just as it is written, Jacob I loved, but Esau I hated. Now, it's an interesting passage because a lot of people look at Romans 9 and they think it's all about an individual either getting heaven or hell. And they think, well, is God choosing this one, choosing this one? Imagine God going to Kelly Yeager and say, I choose you, but I don't choose you, Sam Yeager. Except Sam's younger and Sam, probably is more feisty. Maybe he's going to choose, I don't know how that all works. But imagine, it just doesn't make sense. And then the other thing is, does God hate babies? I mean, he hated Esau. It's crazy. But he's not talking at all about an individual getting heaven or hell. It's about a nation and choosing nations to show who God is. That's his purpose. God has always chosen the nations for the purpose of displaying who he is to the people. And when he chose Israel, he chose them to show his righteousness and his mercy and his grace and his justice through that nation. So what about this hating thing? Well, that actually didn't happen in Genesis at all. God didn't say, I hate Esau when he's in the womb. It actually comes from Malachi chapter 1. Here's what it says. And this was written 2,000 years after that story in Genesis. Malachi 1, an oracle, the word of the Lord to Israel through Malachi. I have loved you, says the Lord. But you ask, how have you loved us? Was not Esau Jacob's brother, the Lord says? Yet I have loved Jacob, but Esau I have hated. And I have turned his mountains into a wasteland and left his inheritance to the desert jackals. At this point in time, what had happened to Edom was that Edom had a land off to the southwest of Israel. And during the time, sometimes they would war against Israel and they had to serve Israel. But God always protected Edom. But Edom was a pagan nation that did not follow God. And eventually what happened was when Nebuchadnezzar, the king of Babylon, came down into Israel and took all the Israelites back up into Babylon, God still protected Israel up there. Remember, through Daniel and through Esther and through Nehemiah, and eventually gave them the land back, and they became established, and eventually the Messiah came through the people of Israel. But 5 years after Nebuchadnezzar had taken the Israelites, he went down to Edom and completely destroyed it. And there's no more Edom. And so what he's saying there about I have hated Esau, it's actually an idiom. It's the same kind of word when Jesus said, you must hate your father and mother if you want to follow me, if you want to love me. Doesn't mean I want you to hate them. It's an idiom saying, look at what we've done for Israel and look at what I've done for Edom. I have hated Esau. What's the purpose? God showed his mercy and his justice through Edom, and he showed his mercy and justice through Israel. The question really is, why in the world did he choose Jacob in the first place? Because neither one had done anything good or bad. But God is sovereign, and he chooses nations for a purpose. And right now, you and I, we're in the benefit of being in the church age, or part of the church that God has chosen to display his beauty, his grace and mercy to the people of the world. And it's real easy to really love sovereignty. But the question is, Why? Why does God choose what he does? But he has a purpose, and his purpose is to display who he is. And that's what I love about Scripture, is that you see this over and over again. And you see it even in that Malachi 1. But let me explain how sovereignty works from another viewpoint. The word sovereign basically means like a ruler, a monarchy, or someone who's in charge of a nation. Okay? And everyone, like I said, everyone loves sovereignty so long as it's in their favor. I can give you an example from my life where I have loved and hated sovereignty out of the same man. My wrestling coach in high school was Chuck Dale, and he just passed away like 10 days ago and had his memorial service yesterday. I would consider him probably the third most important man in my young life in terms of guiding me with character and leading my life, and just an incredible man. But there was a time when I was so mad at him, I wanted to quit the team. And what happened was I had a kind of a really good friend my freshman year of high school. His name was Dean. And Dean looked a lot like me, and we were almost the same size. Both small and had blonde hair. And Dean was on the wrestling team. He wrestled JV at 98 pounds at Northland High School. And my brother was a wrestler, and I thought I was pretty tough because I wrestled my brother all the time. And I told Dean, I said, I can beat you. And he was like, that's fine, let's do it. So we wrestled, and he whipped the snot out of me. I mean, just destroyed me. Afterward, we became even closer friends, and he said, you should join the team. So the next year, I joined the team, and he wrestled 98, I wrestled 105. We were drill partners, and every day we drilled over and over and over again, and he made me so much better. He got the varsity spot at 98, and I got the varsity spot at 105. Not because I was a great wrestler. There's weren't a lot of great wrestlers in my weight class. But, I had the spot. So I'm wrestling varsity that year, and I probably only won about 5 matches, lost at least 15 or more, although I've lost count. And I actually didn't score enough points to earn a varsity letter that first year. But I loved the experience of it, and I loved trying to win, and I was learning. But at the end of the year, the conference tournament was coming up. At that point, the coach looked at the entire team and said, here's what we're going to do. We're going to bump Dean up to 105 to take Ed's spot, and we're going to put this other guy in the spot at 98, because we're going to score more points for the team in the conference tournament, and that's how we're going to win this tournament. So here's the deal. He can't just take my spot. He bumped Dean up to wrestle off against me. And here's how it works in wrestling. You wrestle off every week. The winner gets the varsity spot. And up to this point, I had won the spot. Now I'm wrestling Dean. We wrestled off. And I beat him by 1 point. And now, if my memory is clear, I'm pretty sure I got a controversial 2-point takedown on him at the end. Or it might have been he was trying to get 2 on me, he didn't get it. I remember it was real close and it was controversial, but I did win the match, which means I earned the varsity spot. My coach still did not give me the spot. I was just livid. I'm like, why? I don't understand. I remember debating with my brother that Coach Dale is against us. Somehow, the sovereign leader of this, team is against me personally. The team did score more points, and the truth is, Dean was a better wrestler than me. I just happened to have drilled with him all year long. I knew his weaknesses. But when it came to wrestling other guys, Dean was better. I look at Mr. Dale's decision now. I know it was the right decision. About 2 weeks later, after the season, we're at the banquet, and all of the guys are up there, and the wrestler of the year gets an award, and this is where he also awards all the wrestlers their letters for the year. Well, I never wrestled JV, so I didn't have a letter there, and I didn't qualify to get a letter on varsity because I didn't have enough wins. And the coach looks at me, and when he handed me the varsity letter, and he was saying kind words to me, I remember thinking, I don't understand. I don't deserve this. I know I didn't earn it. You see, when sovereignty's in your favor, you love it. You're like, this is the greatest thing. And I can see now, from years removed, thinking Coach was doing the right thing in both decisions. He was trying to encourage me and move me on to the next year. And he was also trying to do what's best for the team. It's just hard in the moment to understand why. But when you start to understand the purpose, it helps you to get along through the decisions. God's purpose is to show the world who He is. His grace and His mercy, His justice and righteousness. And the decisions that are happening, what He wants from you and from me is to trust Him, like Rebecca did, but to trust Him to understand He's trying to do something through us. He's trying to use us as vessels in this nation or the church to display who He is. So the question then is everything that's happening, every decision that's going on, is God, did He write out a script and we're just kind of following along like some playwright? It doesn't say that. It really doesn't. In fact, I would say this is the third point, is that God gives us freedom to make decisions. In his sovereignty, he has chosen to give us freedom to make decisions. Look at what it says, back to Genesis chapter 25, and look at Esau. This is an interesting story. I love the Bible. You can't make up some of the stuff in the Bible, because he chose Jacob, and Jacob is just an interesting fellow. Look at what it says. Verse 27. Now the boys grew up, and Esau became a skillful hunter, the man of the open country, while Jacob was a quiet man, staying among the tents. Isaac, who had a taste for wild game, loved Esau, and Rebekah loved Jacob. Listen, as a parent, that's just bad parenting. Like, if you're going to write the Bible, leave out bad parent tips. This is a bad parent decision. Now, once when Jacob was cooking some stew, Esau came from the open country, famished. He said to Jacob, "Quick, let me have some of that red stew. I'm famished." Now, this is why he's called Edom. Now, Jacob replied, "Well, first, sell me your birthright." He says, "Look, I'm about to die," Esau said. "What good is the birthright to me? I'm so hungry. I'm going to die if I don't get some stew." And Jacob said, "Well, swear to me first." So he swore an oath to him, selling his birthright to Jacob. Then Jacob gave Esau some bread and some lentil stew, and he ate and drank, and then he got up and left. And Esau despised his birthright. Is this the dumbest story you've ever heard? Let me explain. If you go back in time, let me explain how this works. Everything that you own is not like a corporation. It's like your family business. Whatever you have, family. And the firstborn gets at least 2/3 of the family business. But it's more than just getting more than your little sibling. It's about the responsibility of leading the family. Everything that's going to happen in the future is going to be kind of run through the firstborn. He stole it. He had no respect for that position, no respect for the family, no respect for the name of God through that family. That wasn't Esau's thing. He was just into stew. Lentil stew. I've never had lentil stew. I think the idea is good. It's good. I'm sure it's fantastic. It's a red stew. I'm sure it's awesome. And after you're hungry, I would certainly give up my birthright for some lentil stew in that moment. There's no mac and cheese on somewhere, you know. But anyway, he gave it up. And this is the thing, he immediately regretted it. And if you go on and read more, at the end of Isaac's life, he couldn't see anymore, and there's the blessing going on. This is where he blesses, and Jacob kind of worms his way in there, and he gets the birthright. Esau, when he got his blessing from his father Isaac, he basically was told he would be the servant to Jacob, that his nation would be the servant to Jacob's nation. He regretted it. He hated it. Isn't that how soup works? Soup moments? Those moments where we're like, you think it's an insignificant issue, and I'm like, okay, God understands I need soup right now. I've got to have some soup. So you eat your soup, and you're like, whatever your soup issue is, right? It's that thing that you have to have in the moment, even though this is probably a dumb decision, but it's so insignificant that it's really not going to be a big deal in the long run. It's just soup, right? She's hot. It's my money. No one's going to know. Those soup moments in our life, but they cause scars, and they caused a scar on Esau. And let me tell you something. In Matthew 22, years later, all the Sadducees who were trying to trick Jesus and say, well, there's no resurrection. And Jesus is like, look, you guys are... He didn't say it like that, was me adding that in, but he said, you guys don't understand. God's not the God of the dead, he's the God of the living. He's the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. It was through Jacob that the Messiah comes. Jacob's name was turned to Israel, not Esau's. You see, scars sometimes last a long time. And what seems so insignificant in the moment, those things we engage in, really can have long-lasting effects that we have no idea. And God has given us the freedom, for whatever reason, to make decisions and choices. And those decisions and choices oftentimes have scars on us. And look, I know that you're here and you want to follow Jesus, but listen, there are things you probably have done or things you're thinking about engaging in, but the truth is there's no magic pill, no magic prayer, there's no magic verse that can undo some of the scars that have been in your life and things that are going to happen in the future. There's some things you can't get back. Let me tell you about a decision I made as a 13-year-old young man that when my brother was 14, I was 13. This moment, these decisions we made affected our lives in two completely different directions. In my childhood, I grew up the youngest of 6, and of the 6 kids, several of them experimented with drugs. So it was normal in my family, okay? So at the end of my 7th grade year, I had experimented with marijuana a little bit during the summer, and during the fall of that year, I'm in 8th grade, I'm 13 years old. I'm with my brother James, and 2 of his friends come over and say, hey, do you want to smoke a joint with us? And we're like, all right, I'm just 13, I'm thinking, I want to do what my brothers do. And, I wanted to experiment with it. We go down, and it had something in it. I still don't know to this day what it was. It could have been LSD, it could have been PCP. It definitely was a hallucinogen, and it was a very, very strong narcotic because I was high for most of the night. During that night, I was absolutely terrified. What I was feeling, what I was experiencing, and what I was seeing, it was all terrifying to me. And I remember specifically, in that moment, praying. I said, God, I promise you, I will never do this again. I'm asking you to get me through this, but I promise you, God, I will never do this again. And here's the thing. From that day forward, I've never touched narcotics. I have never been involved in any of that. Other than a few things with alcohol, and even really not a whole lot in my life, I've kind of stayed away from all of that stuff. My brother absolutely loved it. He just loved it. He went on to experience lots of things, experiment with many, many things, and eventually found his drug of choice was going to be alcohol. And he became an alcoholic for 10 years of his life. At the end of those 10 years, he gave his life to Jesus, and he follows Jesus now. He's led recovery ministries. But if you ask him to his face, he will tell you there are scars in his life that there's no way to get back. During the period of that time of his life. Yes, because he followed Jesus now, yes. But he has no idea what could have been in his life. I have made decisions I regret. I'm not even talking about it right now. I bet you know what I'm saying. I mean, everyone makes decisions. You think, man, I can't get that back. You have no idea what God might have planned for you. But here's what I can't get over. Why did he like it and I didn't? I don't know. I can't for the life of me explain to you why I hated that experience and chose to never do it again, and why my brother didn't. I have no answer for that. But I know that God has a purpose for life. He's trying to display who he is not only to you, but through you to others. He gives you the freedom to choose, but there are consequences. There are scars, there are soup scars, we'll call them, on your life when you kind of dabble in things that don't belong. And you have no idea what's going to head in that. But he's sovereign, and he has a purpose. And so in those moments, what he wants from you more than anything else when you're making decisions is that you will trust him. That you'll understand what it is he's trying to do through your life, which is display who he is, not only to you, but to others. In the middle of those decisions, that's when you have to turn to God and say, God, I'm going to follow you, regardless of what I'm feeling in this moment. I'm going to trust you, even though it doesn't seem to be in my advantage at this moment in my mind. And he guided me. I mean, that's the one thing I would say. And how exactly does he do that? I don't understand it all, but I know that he does try to guide. And I think that if you're kind of in that point in your life where you've got some overwhelming temptations, it's time to let go of those. Don't indulge in bad soup, okay? Don't indulge in that. If you're trying to figure out what he's trying to do in your life, God, what do you want for my future? Trust me, what he's trying to do with your future is display who he is to you, and display who he is to others through you. And if you make decisions based on that, you're going to be following God. And I just want to remind you of one really incredible message, is that if you have scars, like I did, like my brother did, that he sent his son down, who took big scars for us, to set us free from having to follow the whims of soup. He can set us free of that. It doesn't mean that we're not going to struggle and have issues. But we can get back up and turn towards God because we've been set free of the chains of sin, the chains and bondage of those temptations because of the cross. The cross isn't, I'm going to get into this race. The cross is the fuel for the entire journey with God. And that's how he sets you free from all of those struggles. So I just want to encourage you, no matter where you're at, look, if you're struggling like with a soup issue right now, turn to God. That's what the cross is all about. If you're trying to figure out, well, where am I heading in life? I don't understand why I'm involved in all this crazy stuff. You never know. God might be preparing you for just the thing that's going to display to others who he is. Even though you don't understand it in the moment. You might look back and say, you're like a master God. Right, he's good at this. I want you to trust God. Have faith in him. So let's do this. I want you guys just to take a minute and think about the things that are going on in your life. I'm going to ask Chris to come back up and play some music, but I want you guys to think about these. If you had to be honest, just you and God right now, these are the things that are going on in your life. What are the things that you're like, okay, all right, I got some soup, like addiction stuff, like I love soup, you're addicted to soup, right? Maybe whatever that is, I want you to think about what that is right now. Just kind of say, God, I'm gonna give you my desire. Maybe there's a thing you're confused. You don't understand why you're in the circumstance you're in. I want you to offer that to God too. Say, God, I'm offering you my situation. I don't understand. And maybe it's time to tell him that. All right, God, I don't get it, but I'm going to trust you anyway. So as you're kind of in this moment, I'm going to ask you to kind of close your eyes and bow your head and just talk to God for a minute. And then Chris is just going to play for a minute or two, and then we're all going to stand and worship together. Okay? But just talk to God. God, I'm just going to ask you to speak to us even in this moment about the things that are in our life and help us to understand your purposes. And more than anything, God, help us to trust in you. In you, pray. Amen.